I used to think that if you gave enough, sacrificed enough, stayed long enough, people would eventually see you. They'd appreciate you, maybe even love you for it. But standing in my parents' kitchen that grey February afternoon, I realized I had built my entire adult life on a lie. My name is Vivian Carter. I'm 36 years old. Live in Port Townsend, Washington, and for the last 8 years, I've practically kept my parents' house from collapsing both literally and financially. Every Sunday, like clockwork, I stopped by their old Victorian on Oak Ridge Lane. The house was charming in that romantic, weather-beaten way, white paint peeling from the window frames, porch swaying in the sea breeze, ivy crawling up the bricks like memories you couldn't shake. Inside, it was chaos, paper piles, overdue bills, and half-finished projects. My mother, Clarissa, had always been disorganized, and my dad, Gerald, retired early due to health issues, and spent most of his time watching old war documentaries or tinkering with the same broken radio since 2012. Then there was my younger brother, Aiden, 29, free spirit, failed musician, and self-declared content creator. He lived in the guest house out back, rent-free, bill-free, consequence-free. Me, I worked as a legal assistant at a private law firm. And on the side, I handled real estate paperwork for a few local clients. The irony didn't escape me. I could organize someone else's estate flawlessly that hadn't even looked at my own parents in years. That Sunday, Mum met me at the door wearing gardening gloves and holding a bundle of mail. "Viv," she said, breathless. "I found an old folder while cleaning out the attic. Mind taking a look? You're so much better at this stuff." I followed her inside and sat at the dining room table, familiar with the ritual. She handed me a thick, manila envelope yellowed with time, labeled in black Sharpie. "Estate plan and will." I paused, not because I was nosy. I wasn't. I had no desire to find out who got what, but I always made sure things were in order, kept things from falling apart. That's why I did. I opened it and began flipping through pages, most of it standard. Power of attorney, healthcare directives, a copy of the deed I had helped refinance 3 years ago. Then I reached the asset distribution page, and I froze. The house estimated at $420,000. The retirement savings about $85,000. A newer SUV my parents financed under my name last year. Even my mother's heirloom jewelry. All of it, every last item, to be passed to Aiden Carter, sole beneficiary. My name wasn't even mentioned except once in a vague opening line. "We love both our children and are proud of their unique paths in life." That was it. No provision, no equal split, not even a note of acknowledgement. I felt my pulse climb slowly like rising water in a basement you didn't know was flooding until your ankles were soaked. My eyes blurred for a second. Then I blinked and read it again. No mistake. All those nights I skipped dinners with friends to pay their heating bill. All the vacations I didn't take so I could replace the roof. All the hours spent scrubbing mildew, coordinating contractors, scanning documents, navigating their bank's outdated online system. It wasn't just money. It was time, life, loyalty, and apparently, none of that earned me even a line in a will. I heard footsteps behind me, light, familiar. "Did you find the statements?" my mum asked, breezing in from the hallway. I stood slowly, the will in my hand. "Mum," I said quietly, voice calm in a way that felt unfamiliar even to me. "Is this real?" She froze mid-step. Her eyes flicked down to the paper. "Oh, that. It's just a draft. Your dad and I. We were still finalizing it." "A draft," I repeated. "With signatures and a notary seal." Her face tightened. "Well, Aiden, he's not as stable as you. We just wanted him to feel secure." I nodded once, just once. The kind of nod that ends conversations and starts a war. Secure. I said flatly, and what about me, the one who kept this house standing for 8 years straight? She opened her mouth. No words came. I placed the wool back on the table like setting down something radioactive. Thanks for the transparency, I said, turning toward the door. At least now I know where I stand. She didn't follow. No one called after me. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't hurt, just hollow. But I was about to learn. Hollowness is a space where something new can finally begin. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry, though I was. Not because I wanted an apology, though I did. I couldn't sleep because something had finally clicked inside me. Something old and rusted had cracked loose in the back of my mind. I lay in my small apartment listening to the storm beat against the windows, remembering the time I stayed up until 3 a.m. fixing my parents' busted water heater, because A then was too tired and Dad's back was acting up. I'd done it without complaint. Like always, and this was what I got. The next morning, I didn't go to work right away. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, just staring at my hands on the steering wheel. I thought about calling someone, maybe Myra, my old college friend, but I didn't want advice. I didn't even want comfort. I just wanted confirmation that I wasn't insane for feeling betrayed. 2 days passed in silence. No calls, no messages. It was like they didn't even notice I'd left mid-conversation, clutching the wool that wrote me out of existence. On Wednesday evening, my phone buzzed. Dad, mortgages due this Friday. Can you transfer the usual? No hello. No how are you? Just a reminder from the Bank of Vivian. I stared at the screen. A long, cold breath left my lungs like foregone glass. Then I typed, Ask Aiden. The house belongs to him now, right? I didn't wait for a response. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Mom. Hannah. Don't do this. We need to talk. You're overthinking it. Overthinking. That word stung more than I expected. It was her favorite word when she wanted me to ignore a problem that only hurt me. I didn't reply. The next message came the following evening. A payment request. $2,300. Labeled. Mortgage. No note. No apology. Not even a question. Just a cold, sterile demand, as if I were a vending machine and someone had pushed the button. I hit decline without hesitation. Then came a phone call. I let it ring to the 4th buzz and declined it, too. Immediately, a new message appeared. Mom. Hannah, I know you saw it. Why did you decline? I took a deep breath and typed slowly, deliberately. Because it's no longer my responsibility. Ask Aiden. There was no reply. That night, something in me shifted. It was like a dam had broken. But instead of water rushing out, it was guilt. Years and years of guilt that had wrapped itself around my spine like ivy tight, suffocating, always present. For the first time, I stood up without bending backward. 3 days passed then. Inevitably, Aiden texted. Aiden. You're being so selfish. Didn't you always say family comes first? I stared at the message for a while. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed, each word cutting like glass. Family is about fairness and respect. Not using someone until they're empty. No reply. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. I began to sleep better. My phone was quieter. My thoughts were clearer. I didn't wake up dreading the next call or bill or emergency. I didn't feel like I was holding up 3 grown adults with my bare hands anymore. But deep down, I knew something they didn't. That silence. It was just the eye of the storm. Because people like my parents, like Aiden, they don't disappear. They don't suddenly grow a conscience or take accountability. They come back when things get inconvenient. When the pipes burst or the fridge dies or the bank calls. And when that time came, I'd be ready. Not to save them, but to show them what life looks like when the one person who always shows up finally doesn't. The thing about boundaries is once you draw them, people don't step back. They push harder. They press against the edges, test the limits, try to claw their way back into the comfort they once took for granted. And my family, they were professional climbers, experts at scaling guilt walls and emotional manipulation. It started subtly. A missed call from my dad at 8:42 p.m. on a Thursday. Then again the next morning, no voicemail. The next message came through text. Dad. Hey, the city trash bill came in higher this month. You usually handle that, right? I didn't answer. He followed up the next day. Dad. Viv. This is just a temporary hiccup. Once the market improves, Aiden will get back on his feet. Just need your help a little longer. Temporary, that word again. The same one they used when Aiden dropped out of community college, when he crashed Mum's car, when he maxed out a joint credit card I didn't even know I was listed on. Everything was always temporary until it became permanent, and somehow my fault for letting it get that far. I waited until nightfall, then sent a simple reply. That's between you and Aiden now. No emojis, no apologies, just the truth. 2 days later, my mum sent another money request, this time for $1, $850, the note read. Just to keep things afloat. I stared at it for a long time. They still didn't get it. I declined. Mom called immediately. I didn't answer. Then came the message, Mom. Hannah, please, this isn't like you. You've always been the one we could count on. Exactly. That was the problem, I replied with one line. And that's why I'm done. That afternoon, I sat down at my desk and did something I should have done years ago. I opened my banking app and removed my name from the joint account I had with my parents, the one I had agreed to years ago just for emergencies, the one they still use to pay bills with my name attached. Then I called the utility companies. Power, water, gas, internet. Every single one had my name somewhere, usually as a secondary or billing contact. I spent an hour on hold with customer service reps. Explained the situation without flinching. One even paused and said, "Are you sure you want to cancel? The other party might be affected." I smiled. Cole, that's the point. I deleted all recurring reminders from my phone, set a new ringtone for my parents. Silent, and then I did something unthinkable. I bought myself a chocolate raspberry cake from the downtown bakery I used to pass by but never stepped into, because there were always more important things to spend money on. That night, I lit a candle, cut myself a generous slice, and watched a movie under a thick blanket without checking my phone once. I fell asleep with no alerts, no anxiety, no sense of impending obligation. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was carrying 3 people on my back. I woke up late the next morning, sunlight warming my face, and made coffee without rushing. No bills, no fake emergencies. No one telling me how urgent everything was unless I fixed it. That peace didn't last, of course. By Monday, I got a new message. Aiden, power's out. You're seriously gonna let this happen to your family? Over a piece of paper. I let the message sit, then typed back, "I'm not letting anything happen. I'm just no longer stopping it." 2 minutes later, Aiden, selfish. Mum said you turned cold. But I didn't think you'd go this far. Cold. No, not cold. Clear. The difference is, cold shuts people out. Clear shows them the exit and lets them choose either to grow up or stay in denial. The next day, my dad texted, "Dad, the heater's busted. Mum's not feeling well. We could really use your help." And for the first time, I hesitated, because part of me, a deeply buried, fragile part, wanted to go, to fix it, to make sure she was okay, to prove, once again, that I was the good one. But I didn't move, I didn't reply. Because I knew what would happen. She'd get better, and they'd forget. Until the next emergency. The next fire. The next bill. The next crisis. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an insurance policy. And policies get cancelled. That night, I sat at my window as rain tapped the glass and silence settled around me. No tears, just a stillness I had never felt before. A quiet, undeniable understanding. They were never going to stop asking unless I finally stopped answering. There's a strange silence that comes after you stop fixing everything. At first, it's loud, deafening. Every missed call, every unread message, every notification you ignore feels like a scream in the background. But eventually, the noise fades. And in its place comes peace. A week went by, then two. I heard nothing. No desperate voicemails, no angry texts, not even a guilt-laced emoji from my mother. I started to think maybe they were actually managing. Or maybe they finally got the message. But the calm didn't last. Not long after, I got a text from Olivia, a co-worker at the firm I worked at part-time. Olivia, hey, just a heads up. Your mom posted something weird on Facebook. Though you should know, I hadn't logged into Facebook in months. But curiosity got the better of me. I typed Carissa Carter into the search bar and held my breath. Her profile was still filled with flowers and old family recipes. But then I saw it. A long, public post. A picture of their house, my childhood home, and a caption that read, "It's heartbreaking when your own daughter abandons you in your old age. After all we did for her. Now we're on the brink of losing everything." Over 100 comments. Dozens of shares. People I didn't even know writing things like, "Shame on her. This generation has no loyalty. That daughter should be cut out for good." I felt my heart that hard in my chest. Not with shame but with fury. They weren't just trying to guilt me privately anymore. They were building a public narrative. One where I was the villain. The cruel, selfish child who turned her back on the people who gave her everything. I closed the app. Took a deep breath. And then I did what I knew I had to do. I opened my laptop, logged into Facebook, and wrote one single post. No background color, no emojis, no dramatic font, just facts. Since my parents have decided to make our story public, here's mine. I paid over $60, zero to save their home from foreclosure. I covered their utilities, insurance, and repairs for 7+ years. I'm not in their will. My name is not mentioned. My brother Eden is the sole beneficiary. The last text I received from my mum was a request for $2,900. My silence wasn't cruelty. It was exhaustion. I'm done being the safety net for people who don't respect me. Attached were screenshots, a PDF of the notarized will, bank statements, mortgage receipts with my name, a screenshot of the last payment request. I didn't expect it to go viral, but within an hour, the post had over 300 reactions. And more importantly, comments, real ones. From real people, friends, old neighbors, even former teachers. "You were always the responsible one. Aiden never worked a day in his life. We all saw it. You don't owe them your life. Viv, I'm proud of you." I didn't cry. I just leaned back in my chair and exhaled. Not relief, validation. 2 days later, my mum took down her post. My dad deactivated his account. Samantha sorry. Aiden changed his profile picture to a black and white flower. His usual move when things slipped out of his control. They didn't message me. Didn't retaliate. Just silence. But this time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. I went for a walk that night. The air smelled like wet pavement and cold pine. Street lamps buzzed quietly as I passed shuttered cafes and quiet homes with yellow windows glowing inside. For once, I wasn't rushing anywhere. I wasn't dragging the weight of unpaid bills and broken promises behind me. I was just walking, letting the past collapse in on itself brick by brick. Because if a house is built on guilt, obligation, and unspoken expectations, then it deserves to fall. And I wasn't going to stop it. Not this time. I thought the public silence meant they'd finally backed off. But people like my family don't retreat, they regroup. It was a Thursday afternoon when it happened. I had just finished a client's estate document review at the local cafe. I liked sunlight streaming in. My favorite lavender latte still half full when I saw him, Aiden, standing awkwardly near the counter in a wrinkled hoodie. Sunglasses on indoors like he was hiding from something. Or maybe someone. I didn't move. Just watched as he shuffled over, clutching a manila folder like it might fall apart if he let go. He spotted me, exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours, and approached. Dave, I just need 5 minutes, he said. I said nothing, just crossed my arms, leaning back in my chair. His voice cracked a little. Not money. I swear. I need help understanding this stuff. He held out the folder like it might explain everything. I took it reluctantly. Inside were letters from the bank. Foreclosure notices, legal jargon, final warnings. He sat down without waiting for permission. I was darting around like someone might recognize him. They're saying the house is going to auction. He mumbled, and Mum, she's not sleeping. Dad's blood pressure's been up. I didn't know it would spiral this fast. I looked at him. Unimpressed. You signed the will, right? Accepted everything they gave you. He nodded slowly, then own it. I thought it was symbolic. He muttered. Mum and Dad said it was just to make things simple. They didn't tell me you were covering half the bills for years. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't ask. Aiden looked down. I didn't think I had to. That was his problem. He never thought. I flipped through one of the letters and unfamiliar cause caught my eye. Second mortgage. Adjustable rate. Cosign by me. My blood ran cold. Did Dad ask you to get Mum to sign anything last year? Something about insurance paperwork or refinancing? Aiden blinked. Yeah. Some kind of property document. He said you were too busy, and since I was the heir, it made sense for me to help. You didn't read it. He looked confused. They told me not to overthink it. I almost laughed. Almost. Get up, I said, standing suddenly. I need to make some calls. That evening, I sat in Myra's office. She was a real estate attorney, and more importantly, one of the few people who'd seen every version of me. The dutiful daughter, the exhausted fixer, and now the woman drawing a line in permanent marker. She read through the documents quickly, frowning deeper with every page. This isn't good, she finally said. That second mortgage was taken out with a power of attorney form listing you as co-signer. That's impossible. I never. It's a photocopy, she interrupted. Not even notarized properly, but the bank processed it anyway. Can I fight it? She nodded. Yes. But you'll need to file a fraud claim and probably bring in state housing authorities. And you'll want to freeze any shared credit exposure. Nah. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was identity fraud, legal liability, financial sabotage. I left her office shaking not from fear, but from something sharper, more focused, rage. They hadn't just written me out of the will. They had kept me in only where it benefited them. A silent co-signer, a ghost with a pen. That night, I filed the report. I flagged the accounts. I signed the paperwork to remove myself from every liability they had sneakily roped me into. Then I lit a candle in my apartment, poured myself a glass of red wine, and stared out the window at the moonlit streets of my quiet life. They had come back, just like I knew they would, but this time they hadn't found the daughter they remembered. They'd found someone sharper, colder, prepared. I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. The next morning, I woke with a strange clarity. I had been used. Not just emotionally, not just financially, but legally. There was a paper trail, and my name was on it. I wasn't just excluded from the will. I was entangled in their web like a backup fuse ready to absorb the damage when everything else blew up. But I wasn't going to wait for the explosion. I spent the entire day gathering everything. Old emails, text confirmations, utility statements, mortgage letters, even screenshots of messages I'd barely remembered sending, the ones that said, "I'll handle it," or "just paid it, don't worry." I forwarded them all to Myra with the subject line, "Time to build my case." She called back within an hour. "Viv," she said, her tone clipped but calm, "I reviewed the documents again. They used your signature on a refinance form from 2 years ago without proper authorization. The power of attorney was dated after you'd supposedly signed. So it's fraud. Textbook," she replied. And the bank missed it. I sat in silence, letting the words soak into my bones. This wasn't just about being written out of a will. It was about being written into a trap. Myra continued, "We're going to file a formal fraud claim with the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions. I'll draft the statement. But you need to contact your bank today, freeze credit exposure, notify them of potential forged accounts. Do it fast, before anything else gets pulled under your name." I thanked her and hung up. Then I called every financial institution I'd ever touched. Credit freeze, fraud alerts, account access lockdown. When one of the bank reps asked, "Was this a family member?" I hesitated for half a second, then said clearly, "Yes, my father." That night, I sat on my small living room rug with a cup of mint tea and a copy of the claim Myra had filed. Case: identity misuse and unauthorized mortgage refinance. Suspects: Gerald and Clarissa Carter. My parents' names on an official document as suspects. There was no joy in that. Only justice. I didn't want revenge. I wanted liberation. 2 days later, the bank called me directly. They confirmed the second mortgage had been flagged for investigation. Until it was resolved, the house was in legal limbo, a freeze placed on any sale, transfer, or refinancing. My name would no longer be held liable. "You're protected," the rep said, and just like that, the lifeline they had secretly used against me was severed. The next week, I drove by the house, not to check in, not out of nostalgia. I just wanted to see it for what it really was. It looked smaller than I remembered. The porch sagged in one corner, paint peeled in jagged lines across the windowsill. A dense old car sat rusted in the driveway, tires slowly fattening. A cracked flower pot lay overturned on the front steps. This wasn't a home. It was a monument to denial, a place where truth was painted over, where sacrifice was expected without question, and where love had conditions written in invisible ink. I didn't get out of the car, just watched, and then drove away. I wasn't done yet. Later that night, my phone lit up. "Mom, your father isn't doing well. The stress is affecting his heart. Can you at least speak to him?" I stared at the screen. Stress. The stress he caused when he forged my signature. The stress of manipulating me into saving a house I never truly owned. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the message to Myra. She messaged back, "Do not engage. You've done your part. Let the investigation speak for you." I followed that advice, but the guilt still called. So I opened the notebook, my old grey ledger I used to keep all their account details in, passwords, billing schedules, customer service numbers, everything they used to call me about. I flipped through the pages slowly, then closed it. I didn't burn it. I didn't tear it up. I just put it back in the drawer. Because I didn't need to destroy the past. I just needed to stop carrying it. 2 days later, Myra called again. "I got a message from their legal counsel," she said. "They're requesting a settlement. No charges filed, no escalation. They want to resolve it quietly." Of course they did. Because silence had always been their way of escaping consequences. "What happens if I refuse?" We go public. Fraud report becomes a court filing. It could get messy. I thought about it. About the sleepless nights. The silent sacrifices. The years I had spent pretending that love was louder than exploitation. Tell them I want my name completely removed from any future financial ties. Full statement in writing if they can't agree. We go to court. You sure? I've never been surer. That evening, I received a scanned letter, signed by both of them. We acknowledge that Vivian Carter bears no financial responsibility for the Carter estate. We revoke all legal claims and confirm her removal from joint agreements. I printed it, framed it, hung it on the back of my closet door not out of pride. As a reminder, I saved myself, not just from debt, not just from fraud, but from being the person who always cleaned up someone else's mess without question. I wasn't their lifeline anymore, and I never would be again. I didn't expect to see them again so soon. That life, especially when you finally start living for yourself, has a cruel sense of timing. It was a grey Monday morning. I had just stepped out of my building, headphones in, ready to catch the bus downtown for a gallery curation meeting. And there they were, all three of them. My mother, my father, Hayden, standing near the entrance like shadows that refused to fade. My father looked tired, his shoulders slumped more than I remembered. I sunken in the way guilt rarely allows sleep. My mother clutched her purse like it held the last of her pride. And Hayden, well, he still wore the same hoodie, still trying to look helpless and misunderstood. I stopped mid-step. Didn't flinch, didn't fold, just stared. My mother was the first to speak. Vivian, she said, voice trembling. We had to come. Things have gotten out of hand. I didn't answer. My father stepped forward, slower than usual. The bank's coming next week to reassess the property. We're at risk of losing the house. I raised an eyebrow, and he looked startled, like he hadn't expected resistance. We made mistakes, he said. We know that. But your mother, she won't handle it well if the house is taken. It'll break her. I crossed my arms. Then why? When you wrote that will, did you decide I wasn't even worth naming? Silence. He dropped his gaze, fingers fidgeting with the edge of his coat. Back then, we thought you'd be fine. You've always been the strong one. I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that brings joy. The kind that burns through your throat and tastes like ash. So Aiden gets to fail, gets forgiven, and gets everything. I sacrificed my 20s to keep that house from falling apart. Tar by Thailand, you rewarded me with silence. I turned to Aiden, my voice quieter but far more dangerous, and you signed. You stood there and took it all with a smile. He didn't meet my eyes. It wasn't meant to be permanent, he mumbled. I thought it was just ceremonial. They said everything was already taken care of. No, I said, they told you what you wanted to hear. And you never asked questions because you've never had to live with consequences. My mum reached out, as if to touch my arm. I stepped back. She paused. We didn't think it would come to this. Can't you help? Just for a few months. Until things stabilize. I looked at her for a long time. This was the same woman I had stayed up with in emergency rooms. The one I cooked for after Dad retired. The one I brought pain meds to in the middle of snowstorms. And now she stood in front of me, asking for more, not love, not forgiveness, but support. Like always. I'm not saying no because I can't help, I said. I'm saying no because if I do, you'll never change. Her lips quivered. Aiden finally spoke again. Barely a whisper. You walked away so fast, Viv. No, I snapped. I warned. I waited, I hoped. But none of you listened. So I left. I stepped forward now, closing the distance not with warmth but with truth. This isn't about money. It's not even about all anymore. It's about the fact that I gave everything without conditions and got disregard in return. You assumed I'd always be there. I turned back toward the building, paused. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. My mum's voice cracked. So this is really the end. I looked over my shoulder. It ended the moment you chose who mattered and who didn't. The late autumn wind swept between us, carrying leaves across the sidewalk like confessions too late to matter. I climbed the steps to the door, slipped my keys from my bag, unlocked it. Before stepping inside, I looked at Aiden, finally meeting his eyes. If you want to grow up, this is your chance. I've stepped off the merry-go-round. Now it's your turn. I shut the door behind me. Their voices faded like echoes in a dream I no longer believed in. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I made tea. Then I sat by the window and watched the storm clouds roll in. Let them weather their own storm now. Because the girl who once built that house with her own bare hands had finally learned. You can't save people who are determined to sink. The silence after confrontation is different. It doesn't ache like waiting. It doesn't scream like guilt. It simply settles soft and still like snow on a quiet street. For weeks after that final encounter, I heard nothing. No calls, no messages, no more surprise appearances outside my door. The house on Oak Ridge Lane. It went up for sale within days. A friend of mine, Marcus, who's now a real estate agent, texted me a photo. Isn't this your old place? Asking $390,000, but no offers. Roof's in bad shape. Wiring flagged in inspection. Might not pass FHA. I stared at the photo for a while. The peeling paint. The drooping gutters. The broken gate I fixed 5 winters in a row. Without me, the house had returned to what it always was beneath the patch jobs and plaster. Cracked, fragile, pretending to be whole. I didn't respond. Didn't feel smug. Didn't feel pity. Just drank my tea and moved on. Across town. I moved into a small loft with wide windows and a view of the marina. I painted the walls in colors I loved. Not ones chosen to please anyone else. I planted succulents on the windowsill and didn't worry if they would survive a power outage or unpaid bill. I was no longer on call for anyone's crisis but my own. Every Monday, I taught a photography class at the local art center for high school students. Watching them hold cameras for the first time, seeing the way their eyes lit up when they captured a perfect frame, it reminded me why I fell in love with light, shadow, and story. Sundays, I edited wedding videos for extra income. Other days, I wrote, finally started the blog I had postponed for years. Its name, Inheritance of Silence. It wasn't about money or property. It was about reclaiming your narrative when your voice has been buried under someone else's version of what family means. I shared stories my own, and anonymous submissions from readers who had walked the same tightrope between duty and identity. And slowly, messages started pouring in. Thank you for saying what I never could. I didn't know I was allowed to let go. Reading this helped me realize I wasn't the villain. I wasn't just healing. I was helping others do the same. One rainy afternoon, while editing photos at my favorite cafe, I got a notification. Price dropped. $30,000 off, listing at 231 Oak Ridge Lane. Seller motivated. Needs TLC. I stared at the screen. The house, once the center of everything I did, everything I gave, was now just another failed listing in a slow market. I tapped hide notification. Didn't look back. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Mrs. Greer, the elderly neighbor who'd lived next door to my parents for 20 years. She just wanted to check in. Before hanging up, she added casually, "Oh, and it looks like Aiden's moved back in with them. I see him doing grocery runs now. He doesn't look too happy." I smiled faintly. Not from satisfaction, but from relief. Maybe this was what Aiden needed most, not comfort, but consequences. Let them learn finally what I learned the hard way, that the world doesn't owe you stability just because someone else paid your bills. As for me, I booked a trip to the Pacific Northwest coast to photograph the autumn fog along the cliffs. I bought myself a new camera semi-professional. A model I once dismissed as too expensive for someone who had family obligations. I was learning, slowly, to invest in myself, and one day, while cleaning out old drawers, I found it. A letter, sealed in a soft blue envelope. My mother's handwriting on the front. Inside, I don't know how to start again. Your father isn't as strong as he used to be. The nights are quiet, and the house feels colder now. I know we hurt you. I don't know how much time we have left to fix things. But if you're willing, I'm still here. I didn't reply. Didn't tear it up. Just folded it neatly and placed it in the same drawer as a stack of undeveloped photos and half-written essays. Things that might one day be finished. Or maybe not. Because healing isn't always about going back. Sometimes, it's about walking forward alone without dragging the weight of what could have been. Months passed. My savings grew. I hosted my first solo exhibit. Stillness in the aftermath. With prints of quiet moments. Sun breaking through mist, coffee cups on windowsills, hands holding books, and trees bending in wind but never breaking. An older woman came up to me at the end. I don't know why, she said. But your work feels like it's speaking for someone who was silent for a long time. I smiled because she was right. I had spent years quiet hoping that silence would earn me love. But now I understood something better. Love that has to be earned through silence isn't love at all. They still live in their house. The last I heard. The house that once stood because of me. Now standing. Barely, without me. Maybe one day, they'll understand what they lost. I won't wait for it, because I've already found something better. Peace, on my terms, in my voice. And finally without permission.